Kupina kuphi emakhaya emadolobheni nasetikomplas takhona senimukela ehlelweni Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right. Sinilethela lo hlelo bukhoma lapha ke bomabona ukuthilohamba embili SABC1 Mzansi for sure. Mina ke Simphiwe Ncongwane, and do note that our program slot has changed. We are now live from 2 to 3 p.m. and remember, you can also be part of this show by calling us on 011-714-5497. You can also email your thoughts about our program to consumer@sabc.co.za. You can also interact with us on Facebook or Twitter. Now, in these tough economic times, it's not uncommon to find consumers battling to keep up with their financial commitments, such as car and bond repayments. Now, as a result of this, a trend is now emerging where distressed consumers find handing over their debts to another person as a way out. But according to experts, this may not be a solution. Let's take a look at this insert.
Ukuba nemoto kuyinto eyisidingo nebalulekile. Kwabaningi kusho ukukhululeka, ukwazi ukuthatha uhambo kalula nokuya yinoma ikuphi lapho befisa ukuya khona. Kwabanye kusho isithunzi nokubaluleka, ikakhulukazi uma uzoshayela imoto yohlobo olubizayo. Ezinye zalezi izimoto zibiza kakhulu nokuyilapho uyodinga ukuba uyoboleka imali ebhange ukuze ukwazi ukuthenga imoto oyifisayo. Kuba kuhle konke, kube mnandi, kuze kube imhla wehluleka ukukhokhela le moto. Ngokwejwayelekile, uma umuntu ehluleka ukukhokhela imoto, ibhange liyaye limnike isexwayiso kuze kube yilapho limiphuca khona imoto. Ukubalekela ukwephucwa imoto sekuba nomkhuba owandayo. Lapho laba behluleka ukukhokhela izimoto zabo bezinikezela noma bezidlulisela kwabanye abantu. Lokhu kwenzeka ngaphandle kokwazisa ibhange. Ngolimi lwasemzini, lesi senzo sibizwa nge-car installment handover. Amabhange nabahlaziyi bezomnotho bathi lokhu kuwubungozi. uClive Ramathibela ongumhlaziyi wezomnotho uthi ukwedlulisela isikweletu nemoto yakho komunye umuntu ukuzibizela amanzi ngomsele nje.
To put that vehicle into someone else's hands, which is not your own, it means that you're in breach of the actual contract with the bank, meaning that should anything happen to that car, particularly if it's not, for example, it's not insured under that person that you've allowed them to drive the vehicle, and they're actually paying you instead the installments and you're transferring it to the bank. The day that person doesn't want to pay anymore, there is no responsibility from the bank side to say they want to chase the third party, because that person therefore is still, in their eyes, you are still liable for that particular good that you have taken with the bank.
Ngisho nezinkampani zomshwayilense zithi uma ungatholakala usogibeni ngenxa yokudlulisela imoto yakho komunye umuntu azisoze zakhokha.
Kusemqoka ukucacisa ukuthi izenzo ezinjalo azilunganga and is illegal ngokomthetho. Ngoba umshwarensi ukhumbula, umshwarensi amothatha umshwarensi abazokubuza imibuzo ethile ebalekile. Lo mibuzo leyo izodetermine ipremium yalo moto leyo ukuthi ihamba kanjani. Le mibuzo abayibuzayo imayelana nawe umuntu wemoto lo uthathe imoto.
Nakuba kuthiwa lo mkhuba wephula umthetho, sebekhona ababone leli kuyithuba lokwenza ibhizinisi noma o-middleman kulika George. Nokuyilapho behlanganisa labo abanezimoto abafuna ukuzibolekisa kanye nalabo abadinga ukubolekwa izimoto. Lezi zinkampani zitholakala kwi-internet iningi lazo. Kanti zethembisa izulu nomhlaba kulabo abazithola bexakwe yinkinga yokungabi namali eyanele yokukhokhela izimoto zabo. Ukuzama ukuthola ukuthi kanti ngempela isebenza kanjani lento yokunikezela ngemoto uma wehluleka ukuyikhokhela. Sinqume ukushayela enye yezinkampani ezenza lokhu.
The new driver takes full responsibility for your vehicle with us. Now, with us mean if he doesn't pay, I pay, we pay. We pay the insurance and tracking fees on your car, and the new driver pays to the bank. If that doesn't happen, then we pay. We eventually can take the car back, we give it to someone else.
U-Andrew lona uzwakala ezokwazi ukuxazulula inkinga yami. Ethembisa nokuthi umuntu azodlulisela kuyimoto yami wethembekile.
If you don't want to pay, it's fine. Then I'll make the thing differently. I'll structure it differently. What car you got?
A Mercedes A200.
A200, right. A200. And 2000 and what model?
It's last year.
2015. And it's 8,000 a month. Okay, has it got a residual and all that stuff?
I paid 25,000.
Okay, no, wait now. If you pay the deposit, then I can make a plan to give you some money back. Sorry. That's fine.
Pho uma kuthiwa lo mkhuba unobungozi, yingani abathengi beziphonsa kulo noxaka na? Hlengiwe wakwamabaso, Yilungelo Lakho.
Hayi siyabonga ke lumbingo lesilethela nguhlengiwe mabaso. Nyalo ke khuluma kabanti ngalendzaba asesimukele ke Jacqueline Peters lobuye lapha ku National Credit Regulator na Clive Ramathibela longumhlati wetemnotho kanye ke nommeli Nkosenhle Mzinyathi. Lady, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Nkosenhle, ngidawuqala ngawe. Is this practice legal?
It's difficult to say whether it's legal or not, but it is a practice that is out there, and I'll discourage it because, look, what you'll find in a contract that you enter into with the bank, it will actually say that you are not allowed to transfer the agreement to a third party. They have the right to transfer the debt, but you can't transfer the agreement. So therefore, if one takes the principle of sanctity of contract, then you are basically in breach of that particular principle, and the party that takes over the contract basically has no rights. The issue of legal or not, I don't think really comes into play, but it's an issue of whether do you have rights that are enforceable under that agreement, and I don't think that you have any rights.
Okay, so say for argument's sake that it is not legal. So how does that constitute a breach of the agreement between the consumer and the bank?
Look, the breach, the contract that is legal is the one with the bank and the consumer. The third contract with the other party that is buying the car, that contract is void or voidable. You understand? So the contract that I'm saying is illegal or is not recognized by the law is the contract outside of the contract between the initial buyer with the bank.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Jacqueline, are these companies, like the middleman companies, regulated by any chance?
Absolutely not. They're not even provided for in the National Credit Act. I mean, the bank would be a regulated entity. You would have the any credit provider would be regulated, but this middleman is sort of a fly-by-night trying to make a quick buck, so they wouldn't be regulated. And that's the worry that I would say to consumers. I mean, we understand this practice may be happening, but there are so many other mechanisms available to consumers under the National Credit Act. The minute that you're finding yourself a bit debt stressed, you got some credit, let's take the car example that we just came across, and you're not able to afford this vehicle. There are provisions under the Act that says you can either notify the bank, you can do a voluntary surrender, you could take this other party formally in and say, let's legitimately get you the credit and you take over this vehicle, or you could go under debt review. So there are easier ways to get yourself out of this pickle than doing these underhanded deals where you are ultimately still responsible to the bank. It's like an affair, bringing a third party into a contract. The bank doesn't know about this person and is not interested in this third party. You are still liable.
But Jacqueline, come to think of it, legal or not, I mean, number one, this has brought a huge relief to consumers, debt-ridden consumers, because you save money and you get easy access to loan approval. Why frown upon such a practice, which is bringing relief and making things easier for South Africans?
Because the Act has been created to protect you as a South African. It is not to say that we want to exclude you from the market, but the Act has been written in such a way to say those who cannot afford credit should not be getting it until such time as they can afford it. Okay. As South Africans, we would like to also live way beyond our means. So we would rather go into this sort of deal, get a fancy car, Whereas had we gone to the bank, we may have got a lesser car that we could actually afford, and it's bringing wealth into your family. You really, illegal or not, you have no enforceable rights if you are the other party. And so it should be that, you know, go through the proper channels and only get vehicles or assets when you can actually afford them.
But say, for instance, that I've got a very high credit score, but then the loan amount that the bank is offering me is very low for the car that I want to buy, and I want that particular car. Do you understand the position that I might find myself in?
Yes, but then you need to actually accept that right now that car is not for you. We need to get assets and we need to build our wealth and build our financial stability to a point that we are creating wealth not only for ourselves but for our families as well. So this act has been created in such a way, it's to protect you from yourself.
Right. Clive, I could see you nodding and smiling. Why do people find themselves in such situations where they have to take over installments?
Global phenomenon. The entire world, we're in a global crisis. We know that financial markets. We know the economy is unstable in South Africa. So desperate time call for desperate measures. And that's why you see the consumer coming up with all these interesting ways. And if you find a loophole, whether criminal, illegal, whatever, you find ways obviously of being able to get people in and you take advantage of them. So for me, it's no surprise at all. What really did make me want to laugh there is the fact that Jacqueline referred to it as umakwa penis. So I'm very worried about that. I'm very worried about that. So
it is actually, in a sense.
It is. You know, so the consumer is basically taking a third party into the agreement which he had already agreed with the bank. The problem that we have, that's very simple. You've got the car registration documents, which we call the NATIS documents. Those NATIS documents belong to the bank until the bank receives all its installments, whether it be in 4 or 5 years that you have taken the agreement with the bank. Okay. Now that NATIS document is very important. So you take then therefore a third party. That third party the bank knows nothing about. Then you contract with this person, right? And then he doesn't know what you're going to be doing with that money. Okay. You could not, perhaps maybe you're not paying it into the into the actual bank's account, and you could be taking it for yourself. And then this person after 5 years says, "But I've been paying this car. I've got this affidavit that I've taken." But the bank says, "But we don't know who you are." The car actually still belongs to the bank because that person probably has not paid the bank the money that you've been paying to them. That is the risk that you find yourself in. That's why people sometimes fight. I've seen people fight for their cars and then they think they've been paying the car, but they've been paying an individual. They're not actually paying the bank.
What's the easy way out of this?
There is no easy way out of it because once you've entered into that sort of setup, I would advise that you stop it if you're aware as a consumer. Umangabe uyaqaphela ukuthi le nkinga lena izokwenzela ukuthi kube nzima ngawe ukuthi ukwazi ukuqhubekela phambili ukubhadala isikweletu sakho. Ngakho ke bengizoqala mina ngishiye le contract le entshe ngingene kuwe nalomuntu bese ke ngizama ngonke semandleni ukuthi ngitshele laba basebhange ukuthi cha angisakwazi ke manje ukuyikhokhela imoto. Ngingenza njani bese ke bazokwazi ukukusiza njengoba shilo Jacqueline ukuthi kusiza okuningi okukhona emabhange nokusiza ukuthi ama consumers wethu akwazi ukuthatha izinqumo ezihlakaniphile.
Right. Hayi ke sentivele ke babukeli nangabe awufuni kuba ngumakhwapheni, stick to the rules. Ungaze nawe uthole uthi khanje sowuthwele imkhono enhloko sowuhlabela na ingoma lesedumile lethe hololo. Leli Yilungelo Lakho. We'll be right back after the break. Stay with us. Siphinde sikwamukele futhi mbukeli tincingo tethu sethuvuliwe kude nawe ube part of le discussion uvete nombono wakho. Inombolo yethu tithi 011 714 5497. Siphinde sitfolakala futhi na ku 011 714 5498. I-email yethu ithi consumer@sabc.co.za. Ungaya futhi na ku Facebook wethu noma ke usilandzele ku Twitter. And taking that into consideration, we've got quite a number of Facebook messages coming right now, and I'm going to have a look at some of those messages that have come through. Unati Khutbum, Uti, I want to know, what does a person have to do when faced with that situation? Talwando Velem, Uti Msagati, Lapo Estudio, Nikela Ubuza Uba, xa uthenge imoto emntwini wayiqhuba emva kweinsuku eziyi-6 yamoshakala ungenza njani? Ngokucinga kwami ePort Elizabeth Woma location, and Nkosenhle, I'd like you to answer that one. Sizwe Singwane eKhombaso uthi yena, if I'm around Mpumalanga, where can I get help if I'm faced with this situation? I think Jacqueline from the National Credit Regulator would assist you with that. Specifically Oscar Kupuna uthi yena ndingokungxaki kungoku and andazi ndingaphuma kanjani edutshwa esikhobeni. Sinazo umqwali uthi yena icebo ke lakuza nani, uphinde athi ke icebo lakuza nani va please at Terfontein.
Okay.
Nkosenhle,
Right.
umbukeli uthi nangabe imoto uyithengile
Sure.
wayishayela tinsuku leting6 yaphinze iyafa, what happens there?
You bought it under this
Yes, under this arrangement.
arrangement. Look, there's nothing you can do. You take it back to the person that you bought it from, because you have absolutely no right. You can't take it to the motor industry's ombudsman, you know, because what are they going to do? So you are basically unprotected.
Okay,
That's all I
Jacqueline,
can
having
tell
said that, who is more at risk here? Is it the initial owner or is it the new owner having taken over the installment?
I think both equally. The initial owner, if you put it in the situation that the person doesn't pay, you would then get blacklisted. The bank would come after you for the vehicle. Another situation is when you are the initial owner, you have to take a credit life insurance. The other person has the vehicle, the other person passes away. That does not mean that the vehicle is then settled by the credit life, because you are still alive. And you would then end up with a vehicle that you can't afford. So that's the risk to the initial owner. To the other person, you have no rights. In the law, you are nowhere on this contract. So you have no enforceable rights. Unfortunately, to the Mpumalanga gentleman, I agree. You just have to get yourself out of this contract. You cannot come to the regulator, as we can't help you because you are not protected under the Act. You would not be able to go to a consumer protector agency. And unfortunately, your rights aren't even going to really be protected in court, other than probably suing for your money back.
Right.
And that's it.
Right. You got yourself in this, you have to take yourself off. We've got another caller, and sina Masombuga ulapha at Delmas eMpumalanga. Masombuga, siyakumukela ehlelweni, sawubona?
Yebo baba, kunjani?
Siyaphila kunjani baba?
Sikhona.
Right. Dini intampu ngakusitha ngani namhla?
Yeah, uyazi baba kunjani? Kuno sesengamsayinela imoto angana license. Imoto rights ayithola, wabhadala. Uthena phelelwa umsebenzi. Ngathi mina kuye asambe siye la wathenga khona imoto, azange afune siye, wathi no wena uzochubeka bhadale. After imoto yathathwa sengizula imoto ithethwe ngaya kuye, ngathi mina asambe
le moto yathengwa nguwe, wase yena uchubeka nama installment?
Yebo.
Okay.
Nase ngithi mina imoto ngizobathi ithethwe, yena awungitshela asambe silandele imoto, wathi no ngizochubeka ibhadale. Wachubeka kwangasatholakala ukuthi kwenzakalani. Bafona bathi imoto ayisabhadalwa. Ngabuza ukuthi imoto iyabhadalwa seyithethwe, nabathi yebo iyabhadalwa. Manje uyabhadala. Into esicakako ukuthi lena bathi imali yangena iphinde i-reverse, ukuthi kwenzakala njani asitholi. Ngoba manje ngezi 26 zale nyanga leni ungikhombile imessage ukuthi nayi imali iphumile. Bafona bathi imali ayingenanga, ngathi imali ingenile nge-26 ngaphasi kwegama lakaJima Sombu. Bathi okay sizobheka, zange basabuya kimi. Babuya nangithi ngibambe ifone bayidropa bona futhi.
Lokushothi le mali yangena iphindze iphume?
Bathi yangena iphinde iphume. Ukuthi kwenzakalani asazi.
Well, siyabonga kakhulu Masombuga. This is that's a very Nkosenhle, that's a legal issue. The caller is basically saying that he bought a car and then he couldn't pay for it. He got somebody else to take over the installment, but then this person can't keep up with the payments. And sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. In the event that he does, then the payments sometimes gets reversed. I've never heard of that. Is that something that's normal?
It doesn't sound normal to me.
Yeah.
What I would advise the caller to do is to basically go and follow up with the bank, what's going on, and then just investigate and take it from there. because it's either that lady is reversing the debit order, that would make sense, or that bank account. But if it's inactive, I don't know how it would still be able to debit the account of that particular individual. So I think it's a question of investigating, and then once you've established what's happened in the past, then I can better advise, because as far as I'm concerned, it's a strange set of circumstances.
Very, very strange indeed. We've got another caller, Nokuthula from Esprit View. Sakumukela maka kunjani?
Sawubona bhuti njani?
Siyaphila kunjani?
Ngiyaphila. Mina ngifuna ukubuza ukuthi is it a wise thing to do now ukuthi uthenge imoto ku auction ne, and then while you buy it, it's just say under the name of the person and na bank, and then masokumele ulande imoto, it's hard for you to get the car because it's just kulo muntu le egameni lakhe.
Okay. That's a valid point there, Nokuthula. Thank you so much for your call. Jacqueline, the caller is basically saying that is it wise to buy a car from auction? Because basically, if the car you buy it on auction, it's still in the previous owner's name.
No, if the vehicle's already been repossessed, you need to remember one thing: the vehicle remains the property of the bank until you have settled your contract with them. So the bank would have followed the legal processes, would have been able to actually get a warrant to attach that vehicle, or the previous owner would have voluntarily surrendered the vehicle, and the bank has the full right to sell the vehicle. So yes, at an auction there would have been the processes followed, and the bank, who is the person that would have then taken the vehicle to auction, would have had full right to do that.
Right. Now, Clive, after the break, you're going to tell us how to avoid getting ourselves into such a mess. All right, we'll take a short break now. We'll be right back right after this. Siphinde sikwemukele mbukeli ehlelweni Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right. Remember, we're now taking calls on 011-714-5497 or 011-714-5498. Ungavakaliswa futhi luvo lwakho ngekuthumela i-email ku consumer@sabc.co.za noma ke ku Facebook kanye ke na ku Twitter. Sinalo munye futhi umbukeli Bongiwe ulapha eWestern Cape. Bongiwe eWestern Cape, sakumukela ehlelweni, sawubona?
Hi bhuti unjani?
Siyaphila kunjani ma?
Ndiyaphila nami. Ndimamele bhuti inqubo. Kune boyfriend yami ithenge imoto emntwini. Then the person, they have the problem for the bank. I think he can't afford to pay. Then the person sell the car to him. I think it was last week. And then they changed everything, like the paperwork. The guy transferred the car to him. And my boyfriend pay him also the amount what he need. So he's not going to be in trouble or what?
Okay, Bongiwe, siyabonga kakhulu. Sethemba thina intambo takusita.
Oh, all right.
All right. Boyfriend uthengele Bongiwe imoto.
Sure.
Then boyfriend wase uthatha over, or Bongiwe wase uthatha over car installments.
Yeah.
So uyabuta nje ukuthi kahle kahle, is it really wise? What would you advise her to do?
First and foremost, there's an issue. The first one, if I understood Bongiwe properly, the boyfriend bought the car. So, and they did a transaction with this person who couldn't afford to pay for the vehicle. The question is, if he couldn't afford to pay it, it means it's still in the name of the bank. And this person would have done the transaction. Advertise, you've seen it on the windows, they say for sale. Yeah. So obviously you would have bought the car. The question is, where did he pay the money into? Did he pay the money into the bank directly to settle the vehicle? Or patale na lo muntu lo osahamba ngale moto. If umuntu ufatala lo muntu, if lo muntu akapatalang imoto, le moto isaba imoto yebhange, not imoto ya lo bhuti omusha. So if you Bongiwe, may find that out. And it's very easy because you can actually, if you have the documentation, you can just find out from the bank who actually owns owns the vehicle, which bank, and then you use that to find out if the money has been settled. If the actual what you're going to find is you're going to find that if that money has not been settled to the bank, If you're not able to get a hold of that person, there is no way he's going to be able to retrieve his money.
So, Clive, Lenza, is it only limited to cars? Does it apply in the purchasing of houses as well?
Yeah, it happens. We say property kakhulu thola ukuthi abantu dala bahleli lapho for more than 20 years bese kushona umuntu oyedwa then kuba ibanga. Ngazi ukuthi sowethu lapha ziningi izindlu zimile. Yeah, bayakhala abantu. Kodwa ke umbukeli kumele aqaphele ngoba into ebaleka kakhulu ukuthi sazi ukuthi masithenga izinto sisebenzisa kanjani imali yethu. Imali yakho uma uyisebenzisela ukuthenga into kumele ube ngokuqinisekile ukuthi leyo mali iyongena leyo nto leyo kunamaphepha abonisayo ukuthi lento sekuye yakho. So kuyizindlu ke kuyofuneka i-title deed ubonisa ukuthi lento le mali sekuye yakho. Igama le-title deed kumele kuvele igama lakho. Uqiniseke ukuthi ngempela lo mthwalo wami ngempela sengithathile lento. Ngakho ke mangabalo iphepha kuba nzima kakhulu.
In fact, before you get the title deed in your name, you should make sure that the title deed is in the name of the person that is actually selling the property.
Okay.
Because they can't transfer rights if they don't have them.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
Yes.
Good point there. Good point there.
Yeah.
Now, Jacqueline, does this principle apply in car rental companies? Because essentially, the car rental companies buy cars from the banks and then lease it to somebody else. Are they exempt from this?
Look, car rental companies, they would have bought the vehicle and they would be the owner of that vehicle. The problem with the car rental companies is a little bit different to the situation we're facing now. They fully are allowed to rent the vehicle out. But unfortunately, it comes at a cost. And renting a vehicle usually is a substandard vehicle. You would rent it at exorbitant rates. Because it's not a credit agreement, there's no cap. And so a person would be paying way more than what they actually would had they gone to a proper finance company. But obviously it's maybe a little bit more legitimate because there's proper contracts and they obviously are the holder of the right, so they're entitled to rent that vehicle out. So you would have a little bit more recourse as a consumer. So a consumer that is unable to get credit, they could follow that as an option. It's obviously not ever recommended. We always obviously say go to a registered financial institution and only get credit that you can afford. But we understand that some consumers may be in a pickle and that renting a vehicle is their only option. So,
but then having said that, Jacqueline, it still does not negate the fact that it's a third-party contract. The bank has absolutely nothing to do with what the rental company does with the client.
No, but look, the rental company is now the owner of that vehicle, so it's not a third party. They would have purchased that vehicle from the bank. So the
what
bank
if the rental companies get finance from the bank?
Then obviously then you are in trouble. It would be
Who is in trouble? Is it the bank or is it the person who hires the car?
The person that hires the car. Then it would be exactly the same as the situation that we're finding now. A person that obviously is not the holder of the right, transferring a right that they don't actually have. So it would be the same situation. But rarely that happens. Generally in the market, the renting companies are companies that own vehicles. If you go to Pretoria North, you find a lot of these rental companies. It's older cars, they rent it out. You just pay a higher deposit amount and you'd pay a higher installment amount on a monthly basis.
Just so in avoiding myself, in finding myself in this situation, what do I do? Who do I check with if this company really owns the car or not?
They'd be able to show you the NATIS documents.
Okay.
So I think that's what's the golden thread. Always look if the person that you're transacting with actually has the rights. And you can see that on a NATIS document, you can see that on a title deed. And then you would be able to go ahead. But if you don't see that person's name on a document, obviously alarm bells, they don't own this vehicle or property.
Okay. Clive?
Can I just assist you with the rental situation? Sure. Because obviously you've got big companies that rent vehicles, so they have a massive relationship with the bank. It is possible that they could have gotten the credit from the bank to be able to purchase a fleet of vehicles, but that's what they do because they've got such guarantees that these cars are out there. But the transaction between the company that rents the vehicle and you, the difference is it's a cash transaction. So what they do is you would never be able to get that car without firstly having insurance, make sure that the car is rented in your name. That's why they need your license. That's why they need to hold a deposit that will make sure that should anything happen to the vehicle, they themselves are protected. Okay. So the transaction is a cash transaction. As you use per day, we charge you a certain rate, and that's what that will charge you. In actual fact, when you get there, you bring your credit card, you pay first before the car leaves the rental car area. So it's a completely different contract in the sense that the risk here remains with the rental company, and what happens is when they give you the car, it's a transaction. It's like buying a car for the 3 days in which you're going to be using it.
So whatever happens, the insurance will take care of it?
The insurance is coming. So they will never allow that car to go out without insurance. Because even it's a risk to them. They give you the car and then there's no insurance, then you get into an accident. So they'll tell you the terms and conditions, and they'll hold a deposit. The more risk that they're taking. So for example, if you're taking a more expensive car, the insurance premium will be higher. It will be covered for 3 days. And then they'll tell you that we will hold a certain deposit up until the car returns back. So when the car comes back, then they release whatever balance of money that needs to go back to you.
All right, absolutely. Well, we've got another caller on the line. Sakumukela Mbukeli.
Hello.
Ninjani mag?
Siphila ngosinjani?
Awu siyaphila. Tini intampi ngachitha namhla.
Futhi ndithi ndathenga imoto last year ngo-October.
Okay.
And then ngoku njengoba ndithenge imoto nje ngoku xa ndiyothenga idiski yemoto kuthiwa imoto ayikho segameni lam, but ke yonke into ndayisayina and then bathi bazoyodropa amaphepha e-post office. But all to find out now, imoto ayikho segameni lam, but xa ndilentuka ii-fines ze-speed ndiyakwazi ukufumana kum
Wayithenga kubani le moto?
igama lam.
Wayithenga kubani?
Ndayithenga kwi-dealership e-Algo.
So le moto beyisegameni lale dealership?
Besegameni le-dealership. And then ngoku xa zifumana ii-fines zibuya zisegameni diski zibize igama le-dealership. Ayikho segameni lam.
Oh, okay. So what's your issue now, Mark?
Akuba futhi.
What's the issue now?
Ndifuna ukuva ke ngoku ndingenza njani ke ngoku ukuze imoto ibe segameni lam.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, sicela ubambe kancane tini intampi takusida. Clive?
Just want to find out if you bought it cash. We were taking it cash now.
Cash
From the dealership.
From the dealership.
Abayenzanga change of ownership. Mele ubuyele ku dealership bayenza change of ownership, babonise receipt yokuthi ubhadala imoto, and banimele bakunikeze manje change of ownership mele bayisign, and then they can do it from the department ukuthi bashintshe igama libe ngayo. They haven't done that. They haven't done the change of ownership.
Okay, so the onus is on you. Yeah, the onus is on you, sisi, ukuthi uhambe uye dealership when the onke lama change of ownership.
If there's still in a problem, I think approach the ombudsman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uvile lapho sisi?
I think she's gone.
No, our caller's gone now. Yeah, if you're still watching, if you're having a problem regarding the change of ownerships, you are free to approach the ombudsman. He'll definitely help you out on that. I can bugele spinza sase lelinye futhi careful. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this. Siphinde sikwamukele mbukeli leli Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right. Uma ufuna ukuxhumana nathi inombolo tethu lapha e-studio kusenguye 011-714-5497 noma ke ku 011-714-5498. Ungaphinza uthumele ke i-email ku consumer@sabc.co.za. Sikhona futhi ku Facebook kanye ke naye ku Twitter. Siyachubeka futhi nale nkhulumo mpikiswano lo. Manyathi, nangabe in an informal arrangement, say two people decide to sell each other a car, maybe I pay 50,000 and then we go to the police station to have an affidavit, a sworn statement, like declaring this contract as illegal. And then a few months down the line, something nasty happens. So is the contract, is the affidavit binding? Does it stand?
Look, firstly, the principles of contract is that a contract can be in writing, it can be verbal. I think. So if we've agreed in principle that, hey, I'm selling you this car and you're buying this car, and an exchange happens, that agreement is binding. The trick with our current topic is that there's a bank that is involved. So as soon as there's a bank that is involved and we are trying to exchange those rights, you must remember that the party that is trying to transfer the rights to you as the buyer, akanawo lawo ma-right. They still lie with the bank.
So the only thing that lanayo njengule affidavit, does that diminish the value of affidavits?
No, it doesn't, because look, the affidavit will be used as proof that an agreement is in place. But it does not necessarily in itself is an agreement. An agreement will be the verbal agreement between the parties. But the affidavit is just proof that there was actually an agreement between the parties.
So that they have to make a separate contract apart from the affidavit, is that what you're saying?
I would say, yeah. Okay. Because remember, an affidavit, you can't make a joint sworn statement.
Right.
Because an affidavit is a sworn statement. It's like me giving evidence in court. It's not an agreement. An agreement is when two parties enter into an agreement about something. And that is an agreement. Once we say we enter into an affidavit, that is proof that an agreement is in place between us as the parties. But in itself, it's not an agreement.
Right. No, siyabonga kakhulu lapho. Sina Siphiwo lo lapha eThekwini. Siphiwo siyakumela ehlelweni sawubona. Siphiwo ukhona elayinini?
Yelo.
Siphiwo eDurban sawubona maka.
Yebo sawubona bhuti.
Kunjani?
Ngiyaphila.
Siyaphila. Singakusita ngani namhla maka?
Inkinga yami lana ngithenga imoto ku-dealership. So ngithenga imoto. Bathi bazama ukuthi bangitholele i-finance cause u-cash bengingafuni ukuthi ngithenge cash khona ngizokwazi ukuthi bekhabathi imoto yami iba nenkinga. Then bathi okay, since ngingenawo ama-records kwa-credit bureaus, so bazokwazi ukuthi bangithole bazame ukuthi ngikwazi ukuthi ngithole imoto njengoba mina nginayo. Bathi okay, bezama angiqualify ngoba anginawo ama-records, but into abayenza benza ukuthi ngingakwazi ukuthi ngithole i-loan ukuze ngikwazi ukuthenga imoto. And then ngayithola le-loan, ngingakwazi ukuthi ngithole imoto. Uma ngithole imoto through i-second bank, then mingabe i-third party, then mingabe ngithola imoto yami ngayithenga and iyahlala about a year, then kwaba khona imoto iyasha but kwasha ubhampa kwasha isadira and then kwaqhuma i-insurance. Ngathi ngibuyela kule third party, yathi i-third party no imoto ayikho insured. Mina bengifuna ukuthi ngizitholele i-insurance yami esayidini. Then mina into yami kahle ibuza ukuthini ama-third parties lawa angithi if usikhokha sikhokha imali le esuke uyitholile yokuba imali le esuke uyibolekile ukuthi ukwazi ukuthola imoto yakho noma imoto ngemalanga. But le mali isuke ifakile zonke lezi zinto lezo ukuthi izinto zikhaviwe, izinto lezi zokuthi imoto mase iyasha noma iyantshontsha. Kwenzeka kanjani kahle kahle ukuthi ngazithola thina usizo njengabathengi?
Manje ngeline lakho alivakali kahle, maka ngicela ukuthathisa lokuthi uthenge imoto ku-dealership, uthenge ngelibhange noma uthenge cash?
Ngithenge i-flat cash.
Okay, wase-ke uthola a-third party ukuthi achubeke ne-installment?
Yes.
Okay, so yini-ke inkinga lodibene nayo maka?
Inkinga yami isekutheni i-third party ngithenge imoto yami engabe iha. Ngibuyela kwi-third party because imali engiyikhokhayo ichaze ama-interest o-interest accrued, i-insurance, ama-finance charge, zonke lezi zinto. Bathi bona abakwazi ukuthi bengisiza ukuthi bangiripeyele imoto yami, kumele ngiyiripeyele because bengingenayo i-insurance yokuthi ngikwazi ukuthi ngilungise imoto yami.
Okay, all right. Siphiwo siyabonga kakhulu. Clive, can you help out?
Yeah, man, it's complicated story, but
yeah.
Usiphelele unenkinga yokuthi akazange achubeke ukubhadala insurance. Noma bekayibhadala uthi bekayibhadala, but lo muntu lo bekamnikeza imoto is a third party. So the insurance is refusing to pay for the damages on the car because this person who was driving the car is not her. She leased the vehicle out to the third parties who's been paying, but now unfortunately because she's claiming from the insurance company the insurance company won't pay because there was a third party. Unless that person was included in the insurance quotation that she's been paying on a monthly basis, there's no way they're going to fix the vehicle. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. Now, Jacqueline, say, for instance, I get a job overseas and I relocate maybe for 18 months and I've just bought a car and it's financed over 54 months. That's around about 5 years. And I want to hang on to the car. I want to use it when I come back. So what's the point of me paying for the car that I'm not using? Why not just lease it to somebody else and I can use it when I come back? Would you still advise me to?
No.
Why not?
Because it's the story we've been telling the entire day. What if that person, while you're sitting over there, doesn't pay the vehicle? Because surely now, in that situation, you're not going to have someone paying into your South African bank account and then paying the bank. So you don't know that the person's not paying. You come back, you have a bad credit record. Maybe I'm going to even create a bad scenario. You work in the financial industry. You now have a bad credit record and you can't get a job. The bank has come and repossessed the vehicle. The vehicle was in an accident and the insurance didn't pay it off. It's never advisable to lease the vehicle out because your rights aren't covered.
Right, so I would have to let go of my beloved convertible while I go overseas?
Yes, and then hopefully you make enough to buy a new one.
Oh, absolutely. All right, nyalo-ke sithatha ikhefu lethu lekugcina mbukeli ungayinzawo siphinde sihlanganyele emva kwale nsengiso. Siphinde sikwamukele futhi mbukeli lena-ke ingxenye yekugcina yehlelo lakho Yilungelo Lakho. Siyaqhubeka futhi nale nkulumo bikiswano yethu lapha. Jacqueline, let me find out from you. I mean, can consumers complain, lodge a complaint with the NCR if they end up losing their vehicles after a deal gone sour?
No. You are not protected under the National Credit Act. You bound yourself to an agreement with the bank. If you went and you breached that contract, you've breached the contract, you've breached the National Credit Act, you are not protected, so no, you can't. What I would say to those consumers is before you get into that situation, you contact the regulator. We can advise you about debt counselling. We can advise you about Section 127, your right to voluntary surrender your vehicle. So if you've got a vehicle, you can't afford it, before you get into some sort of side contract, rather use the rules and the mechanisms that the government has sat down and thought, how do we help consumers if they get into a debt-strapped situation? Use those situations to get yourself out because you're still protected.
Now, on the issue of the middlemen who organize takeover installments for third parties, are you planning on shutting those down?
I would love to get that middleman's details because I'd like to investigate that.
But it's out there. It's on the internet. It's on newspapers.
We'll definitely look into it.
Okay. All right. Clive, final words?
Yeah, man, it's very sad. You know, our people, we're going through the hardest economic downturn that we've ever seen. I mean, and I think we would be in a worse situation if we actually didn't have the NCR and the NCA. I think I don't know what would be happening. So they're there to protect us as consumers, and we just need to give them time and understand how they operate so that we can protect ourselves. But don't take situations or conditions that would put you in a worse situation. Now, not only are you owing the bank, do you not have enough money, now you're still owing the bank and you've lost your vehicle. So to try and sort this thing out, what you need to do is talk to the bank. And they are very understanding. I can tell you now, they're very understanding. They understand the conditions in which we live under, and so they are willing to be spoken to. Even if if you negotiate appropriately with them, maybe you can renegotiate the terms and conditions. That's why these guys are here, so they can help you to plan appropriately. So we understand the financial pressures that our consumer is facing, but it's better to remedy the situation by doing legal things rather than doing illegal and getting ourselves into further trouble.
What if the legal things don't work for me? I mean, the takeover installment principle is the better devil, so to speak.
It's a better devil that, but now you're creating a third devil, and so I would guard against it. You know, we spoke about the analogy of umakwapeni. You know, so You know, if you're a blesser, then you can bless the Makwapeni. But you don't want to get into that situation.
Final words?
Look, as I think Clive has said, and he has said a mouthful, I don't think you want to find yourself in that situation, both as the purchaser and both and as the owner of that particular vehicle, because there's no winner. In the event that the buyer defaults, then you're in the same position as you were when you sold the car to him. The only problem is that now you don't have possession, and now you must try and regain possession so that you can surrender it to the bank.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that is a big no-no. On the other side, if you are paying and you're paying to this a seller that didn't have money in the first place, and he takes your money and use it for something else, then and he's not servicing that credit installment, then come the end of the credit installment, you don't have a car. The bank still repossesses the car that is with you.
Sure.
And what recourse do you have? You go and claim back the money from a person that is debt ridden. Chances are you won't find anything. They'll find themselves sequestrated, and insolvency laws apply there.
And there are other assets in your name, such as cars. Such as cars and houses. You lose them; they get repossessed.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, anyway, we have unfortunately reached the end of this program. Nkosenhle Mzinyathi, thank you so much for joining us. Clive Smith, thank you so much for joining us. And to Jacqueline Peters, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Yilungelo Lakho.
All right.
Let me thank the studio guests for making time to be with us today. And please join my colleague Alicia Jali again next week Friday for yet another live consumer affairs discussion. Kindly note that our program slot has since changed. We are now live from 2 to 3 p.m. From me, Simphiwe Ncongwane, and the rest of the team, Nsale kahle.
Home